Okay. So I think we started the recording. I am, thanks to everyone who is here. I am deeply happy to present you our honorable guest and honorable lecturer, Professor Sarat Kumar Jina, who is founder, president of International Association of Comparative Literature, Society and Culture. And he's also the professor of the Department of English, Kshetrabasi DAV College, Nirakarpur, Utkal University, Bhubaneswar, India. It's a great honor to present Professor because this is the continuation of our collaboration that started this spring, and I hope it's not the last meeting we have together, not the last event we have together. And the lecture will be delivered on the topic European nation state and Indian nationalism, theorizing of colonialism and colonial history in British India and later. And let me share my screen with you. Just a moment. It's sorry, I'm usually in Zoom, but yeah, so it's a little bit unusual for me. Yeah, can everybody see? Okay. Can everybody see the screen? Can you see the screen? I'm sorry, dear colleagues. Can you see the screen?
Yes, I am able to see it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, dear professor, the floor is yours, and thank you very much for doing this for us. We are all ears.
Bapu.
Okay, professor, we can start.
Hello everyone. Namaste. I am Sarat Kumar Jena. I am from Bhubaneswar, Odisha, in India. This is a very ancient place in the history of India. Today we are going to discuss something really very serious, and that is the modernization of nation state. So I have made it very brief because it's a very huge chapter in the history of any modern nation, like like Russia or previously USSR or United States of America or Europe. The idea of India is very much diversified and very much plural. So today we are going to discuss that. My topic is European nation state and shaping Indian nation, theorizing colonialism and colonial history in British India. I'll be discussing some key words. They are nation state, modernization of India, Indian elites, post-colonial theory, subjectivism. So I'm very much thankful to the Center for Perceptive Studies, Institute for Social Sciences, the Russian Presidential Academy of National Economy and Public Administration for this wonderful opportunity. And I begin with the permission of the moderator and coordinator, Dr. Irina Dushakova. So can we go to the next slide, please? Next slide. Okay. So, this is a very modern map of the Indian subcontinent. You can see that I choose this map because I just wanted to tell everyone who are very new in this area of study that the Russian Empire and the Indian subcontinent, they are very close also geographically. Though politically we are very close, we are a very good neighbor and very good friend of each other. And the previous United States of Soviet Russia and the present Russia has a very good relationship, support, and contribution towards the Indian nation. So I chose this map knowingly, but I just want to tell you that you can go see this. Apart from the Russian Empire and the Chinese Empire, all other under this side Indonesia and Bangkok, and the entire region was once like this Burma, this Nepal, this Bhutan, this Pakistan, Afghanistan, all are so all are part of the ancient India and also the medieval India. But in modern India, in 1947, there was a division in between, and there are many new nations like Nepal, and Bhutan and Afghanistan, Pakistan. They are now not in the Indian subcontinent. To know the Indian subcontinent, I just want to tell you that this there is evidence that before 2,50,000 years before that time, there was human interventions in this region. That means it is one of the very oldest civilization in the world. Like the Western theorists and scientists, they have assured us that we are about 10,000 years old civilization, like the Mesopotamia, like the Tigris and other civilizations, like the Chinese civilizations. So this is one of the oldest civilizations. So, but my presentation today and my topic today is limited. It begins with the 17th century. Begins with the 17th century, very recently, like last about 500 years history of this subcontinent. Next slide, please. The idea of European nation state as republic. So we begin with this, the idea of European nation state as republic. If you have some idea about Plato and Aristotle, so I mean ancient Greek and Roman civilizations, also that is a classical idea of republic and nation state. Nation state was existing also in the ancient time, in the classical time, and but it got its relevance when it became republic, and first it became in Europe. And the nation state and the idea of nationalism, political nationalism, first grew up in Europe, but soon after it spread to Africa and Asia and other parts of the world due to enlightenment. Enlightenment is an idea of the 18th century where the Europeans started studying the other races, other this is a one kind of hello. This is one kind of anthropological approach towards the mankind. So which began also invasion of the regions mostly done by the Russians, by the Europeans in the Africa and in the Asia, and which is popularly called as imperialism and also colonialism. Next slide, please. The nation state or republic in ancient and medieval Indian subcontinent. Nation state was existing in India before this modernization. Nation state was, but it was not likewise. The nationalism in India was mostly feudal. It was ruled by kings, and there are so many small kingdoms and large kingdoms in this subcontinent. There is no united India until the British colonialism appeared here. So it is a very recent development. There are many, many dynasties existing in on this, part of the earth. They are very independent, and they had been, they are their own monarch, and it was ruled by many monarchs. There are many monarchs, ruling in this subcontinent, and but it is, there is something change came during the medieval period. Why medieval period? Because that is a time when the Afghans, the Mughals, from the Far East and Near East in Asia, and also the Europeans appeared on the Indian side. They appeared out of their, quest for gold, out of their quest for wealth, and out of their quest for power. So that time there is a shifting of power to foreign invaders, and the nationalism that time was communal. Like there was a community or linguistic nationalism, religious nationalism, and social and cultural nationalism in India. It was, I am telling you, it started in the 11th and 12th century onwards. 12th century onwards, and it took a shape in the 14th and 15th century. And about the first of its, united dynasties existed in India in the 15th century, 16th century. It was established by the Mughals. The Mughals who came from the, east, and they who ruled here about 200 years. And the nation state in India during the shifting of power to foreign invaders, it was autocracy. There was no democracy, and it was feudal. Means still there are some local kings were ruling with a, with a cooperation with the invaders. Like they had cooperation with the Afghans, they had cooperation with the Mughals, and later also when European powers came here as imperialism and colonialism, they also, had their, adjustments with these, foreign powers. So there is autocracy, there are feudal powers, and there are imperial powers. And nation state in India during British colonialism, again the repeat, like again during British time, there are some independent states who used to pay tax to the British, colonizers here, and also there are, directly ruled provinces of the British, and there are also some, imperial powers existing. Next slide, please. I have made this chart. Please go with it. You can see this, like, now let us forget the Afghans or the Mughals from the Far East and the Middle East. From the Far East, I'm telling, from the Far East and from the Mughal Middle East, there are invaders who came to India and who ruled India until, you can say the end of the 16th century. But the 17th century see a different trajectory in Indian nationalism or Indian nation state. So these are Austrian invasions, Swedish invasions, Dutch invasions, Danish invasion, French invasion, Portuguese, and British colonization. I'm telling you, the Austrians, the Swedish, the Dutch, the Danish, the French, the Portuguese, they came as invaders. They hold some small forts, they did some business, they had their small armies, they have their treasury and all, but they were not settlers. They were not settlers. Out of them, the British colonization started by 1600 and which continued another 250 years till 1947. India got its modern freedom from British colonization in 1957, 15 August 1947. So that's a period when up to that period, these 250 years is a very drastic changes came in Indian life, Indian society, Indian politics, Indian economy, and Indian trade and business, language, education system, everything was introduced from the point of view of the Europe, and the Indian traditions, Indian institutions, Indian values, they shrink day by day. And at some point of time, there is a there is a crushing in between these two traditions, like the European and the Indian, the native and the foreign. So, however, the British are not invaders. British are not invaders. They were settlers. They settled about 250 years in this region, but they left when they could not control this entire, political geographical space. Next slide, please. I think this one gave you a very good, wholesome idea of how the Europe was in India, and almost all the powerful people from the Europe, they came here because there was inventions by many Europeans and Americans, and they found the water route to come over to India by the sea, the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean and all. So they used this sea routes, and they came here as first as a trader, but later they build up their fort and they maintain the fort for some time. And some of them also, you can see in my last slide, until 1961 there was Portuguese monarch, Portuguese rulers were here, like they maintained small areas in India, and but they left. The last was 1961. So I can tell you that I before I had this impression that the nationalism in India, this slide I have completed. So come to next slide. British colonization, colonial modernity in British India. So the colonial, what is colonial modernity? Means what is modernity? First of all, there are many students and professors here. I'm just telling you, modernity means there is a shift, there is a change. The change which brings a wholesome idea to the life of a community or a geographical region, like which is very a novel idea, a new idea, or a new concept which builds up our society and our lifestyle and our cultural normatives. Everything is mapped by some change, and that change is always called as modernity. So the change came through the British colonialism. It's called as British colonial modernity. And what is this colonial modernity? Where it is felt, it is idea of European nation state. So the British, the people now at present the United Kingdom, who also adopted this democracy and this idea of nation state from the Europe, they brought with them that idea. So the ruler of the British India was the queens and kings of in the London, and they have their representatives here. Apart from that, they also introduced election and democratic political parties. So the idea of European nation state, they introduced revenue code and land reformation. So because there are so many feudal states and there are not a single state, and there are so many kings, and somewhere independent, somewhere under the British rule, and somewhere still trying their best to get their freedom. So it was a but the British, they mapped everything and they found a unique revenue code and land reformation. They reformed the entire land of India, which is a huge task. They did, and they introduced customs and taxation. Taxation customs was there, revenue code was there also before the British came, but everything changed when the British came. The values became European, not the Indian. Indian taxation system was very ancient. It was there. Land reformation was there, but it was introduced with the European values. Then they started communication. Like they brought with them the telegraph, the post office. They brought with them the telegram. They introduced the telephone. Many things were introduced in communication. They introduced the writing system. They introduced translation. They introduced many things, like they introduced many language and scripts, because India has so many languages, so many dialects. You go 100 kilometers, the dialect of the language changes very frequently. So some of the languages and dialects were reformed also by the British. And then transport was introduced, the rail and the sheep, and the road transport ways, everything was the European machines were used here. So this was brought by the British, not by other ones. Then industrialization, commerce and trade, like they introduced so many industries here, like the manufacturing, and the leather and the textile, and many things, the tea, and many things, the coal. So then when industry came here, the capitalism started automatically. And then the most important is the British educational system. It was introduced in 1835 in India, and all the Indian schools and traditional colleges, schools and colleges, they were overlapped by this British educational system. Then the most important is the media, like the modern media, print media, the radio, and even the radio and the print media was brought by the British to here. So they also established printing presses, and the Christianity and the missionary. So they introduced Christianity in India. Until now, it was a Hindu-dominated state, though there are a number of Muslims and other religions, because the invaders before these were mostly the people from the Far East and the Middle East, where the religion is Mohammedan. So then also popular culture, like British introduced cinema in India, photography in India. They introduced modern theater in India. So and a lot of things, like so many popular cultures and urbanizations. Like they started making cities, like the Kolkata, the Mumbai, the Chennai. Earlier it was Mumbai, Madras, and Calcutta. All these major cities and ports and forts were established by the British. So also they introduced census and counting of the population, and segregation of the population, like the as per caste and class. Like there is a caste in India which plays the vital role. It is absent in other parts of the world. So I mean, on the basis of the caste, and they divided the people during the census. They began the census in the 19th century in India, and they established provinces. They divided the political and geographical region of India into different provinces, not with their traditional or feudal names, but with their geographical and linguistic names, like the Madras provinces, like the Bengal provinces, like the central provinces. So many provinces were introduced which were directly ruled by the British. And the master was in the London. The Queen was the a monarch of this British India. And then also slowly what happened when these things were happened, like they introduced to university system in India, like the first of the universities in India, like the European universities. University was there in India, ancient in India, like 10,000 before. There are Nalanda and Takshashila, which were known for their traditional Indian ancient and medieval, until medieval age it was existing there. In the beginning of the medieval, it started collapsing. So they introduced the European university system in India. Also the medical and all facilities they also introduced. And this is a time when they trained so many Indians to learn English, to behave like English, to think like English. They went to London. They most of them studied law and political science. So many European subjects were taught to them. So these people, they appear as the elite. The elite means they were Indian in flesh and blood, but their taste was European. Their taste was English. So these people, they started some democratic political parties, and they demanded for election. Then elections also happened in India, in British India, and also houses were formed. Houses of elected members were formed. But this was something different, like but the houses and those parties were not given full freedom. They were given some partial roles to help the colonizers in the reformation of India. So this is, the I have an entire chapter in my PhD thesis on this colonial modernity. I worked with it more than 12 years. So it's a very fascinating thing. Can I go to the next slide? So this idea of the modern nation state in British India, it became a just a parallel institution of European nation state. Means which was existing before the British came here, before the Dutch came here, before the Austrians came here, before the French colonies established here, before the Portuguese colonies established here. It was disappearing. So the India lost its traditional institutions, traditional values, thoughts, and concepts. So the European things were coming so fast that it was unstoppable. It was unstoppable at a point. And I told you the formation of Indian elites, like these elites were part of the colonial modernity. They were the product of the outcome of the colonial modernity. They were trained on the under the colony, the institutions of the colony, the universities in India or in London. They went there, they learned there, they came back, they become the barristers, they become the civil servants, and they become the political leaders, they become the writers, they become the, even some of them converted their religion. But out of all these changes, the fascinating thing is that they learned to defend the British. They learned to defend the British by using their methods, like same method, like they started decolonizing. They started decolonizing. They thought when they saw the English, their political nationalism. It is the era, it is the period when political nationalism came into existence. Before this, there was communal nationalism, regional nationalism, or sub-nationalism. There was religious nationalism. There was cultural nationalism. But during British invasion, we found that there are instances when you can say that people started thinking about freedom of India, complete freedom of India, which was achieved in 1947. So there was a struggle, like violent and non-violent struggle for such happening. Yeah, so this struggle gave us our freedom in 1947. Uh, when these Indian elites they formed, so they used this colonial historiography, the colonial many incidents, events, and the whatever the history of the colonialism says, and that helped them to reshape their political national. So this colonialism was responsible to shape the political nationalism in India, and it was led by the Indian elites. The Indian elites who were trained under the colonial modernity or the British systems. And what is the, then subjectivism? So then these subjects in political economy and subjects in social and cultural representation, like in literature, like in history, everywhere, the Indians became the subjects. The Indians became the subjects. And I will tell about the subaltern scholars in my subsequent slides. Please go to the next slide. So, elite formation, as I told you, as guiding principle of Indian nationalism, and we have three kind of elites during British colonization. And as per my research, the British elites who were colonizers, missionaries, anthropologists, Anglo-Indians, etc. And Anglo-Indians means there are some people like some British they married women in India, and their children called as Anglo, having one English father and Indian mother, Anglo-Indians. And there are anthropologists who went on search of various communities and tribes in India. Then there are colonial officers or colonizers. Then Christian missionaries, etc. Then Indian elites, like categories of caste and class under colonial effects, like a high class, like the high class and high caste. Like caste is very difficult for you to understand. You can Google this terminology, caste. There are so many books also on caste. So the caste is a hierarchy of which comes under the Hindu religion, which comes under the Hindu religion. It is one of the ancient codes which define our social, cultural, political, and economic status in India. So the people in the caste hierarchy who are in the upper caste and upper class, they became the they become the casting. They become the casting of the British colonialism in India, and they are called basically they are called Indian elites. But their background, if you study each Indian elites in the colonial period and later also, they are from the upper caste and the upper class. Upper class you can understand because you have also class system, but upper caste it is difficult for you to understand. You can find this terminology, and there are a lot of readings on internet. You can find it caste. Otherwise, I can send a file to Dr. Irina, so she will distribute among you. So, but there are some new categories also came into existence. They are called subaltern elites. Subaltern elites means the people who are in the lower, strata of the caste and class system. I told you the upper became Indian elites, the mainstream elites. But there are also some categories who are under this caste and class directly and indirectly under colonial effect. They became the subaltern elites because they also started thinking like their mainstream Indian elites or the British elites. So some of them who struggled and who came up as as thinking or acting like their main counterparts, like mainstream elites and the so they are categorized as subaltern elites. Please go to the next slide. So this is colonial, subaltern, and post-colonial studies of modern India. So these post-colonial studies in relation to globalization and novel approaches to the imperialism and colonialism by US and USSR. So why we are studying post-colonial? Why we are studying imperialism? Why we are studying, colonialism? Because it was an examination. It is a continuity of that effects by specifically by the US and the United States of Soviet Russia. So by that time, they had some idea of imperialism and colonialism, that is to to become powerful, and to rule over other continents and other nations. So that's why it is required to examine what was their role and how they proceed at time, and history and legacy of European imperialism. So it is also important to study history and legacy of European imperialism. Like I gave you one example, like the Austrian, the Dutch, the Swedish, the French, the Portuguese, the English, who came to India and build up their history and legacy on Indian soil. Likewise, also this is a method, like how you will find out, the Europe. The Europe is everywhere. The Europe is everywhere. May not be in there are some strong nations like the USSR and China or the Japan. Apart from that, all subcontinents and nations are strongly influenced by the Europe. They have everything which the Europe have. Then this is a kind of heterogeneous study, like that is very much dynamic and very much multiple and plural and heterogeneity. And then this is also hybridity, means there will be native traditions, there will be European traditions, then there will be a mixed tradition. So that is then there is subjectivism, like who are affected, what categories, castes and classes, which classes are affected, which people are affected, who became the subjects, who became the who were controlled. I mean, during the imperialism and colonialism, who were under this power hierarchy of imperialism and colonialism, they are the subjects. And this study is very much interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. Even a physician, even a literature person, a culture person, economic person, and a political science, sociology person, they can study all these and this is intellectual and political possibility of recent development. So this is this post-colonial and imperial studies are the backbone of the present political possibility of recent developments in the world, like whatever the power power regimes are controlling trying to control the different part of the world, like various wars and conflicts happening around the world. And then very important is the colonial historiography. Like we have to go step by step and learn how the colonial encounters happened, and how the modern history is written. How the modern history is written. So, and what is that modern history? Who wrote this history? And who wrote for whom? And who definitely those people who are powerful, they wrote themselves the history and they controlled the history. So this colonial historiography also need to examine. Please go to the next slide. So this colonial study it's basically, it started in 1970s and 80s, post-colonial studies of India by Indian scholars. Before that, India was studied by the West, Like the in the ancient time, the Chinese, they studied a lot about India, and afterwards also during this this medieval period also, so many Afghans, Mughals, Arabs, and they studied India. Or during the colonization period, so many Americans, British, and Europeans, they studied about India. But India studied by Indians itself in the modern way. In the modern way means the way the Europe studies every race and every community or every society. So it started in only in 1970s and 80s when many Indians, they went abroad and they studied and they taught in different universities, and they hold important key positions in world politics and world economics and in world capitalism and many things. When they had opportunity to study, they studied the Indian subjects. But what they did, they studied from that colonial model. The model is nothing new. The model is nothing new. The same things repeated. The same things repeated. They took this historiography of colonial India as the basis of their study, and its continuity after independence of India in post-colonial period. But the concept or the the strategies never changed. It remained like that, remain similar. So they are Ranjit Guha, Dipesh Chakravarti, Amartya Sen, Akhil Gupta, Arjun Appadurai, Veena Das, Bandhana Siba, Ramachandra Guha, Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak, Chandra Talpade Mahanti, Vasudha Dalmi. So there are so many other critics and theorists and who studied India from different perspectives, like the political, the economic, the sociological, the feminist or the gender-based, or the literary or the cultural, kind of, mm, approaches. They had different approaches. So in our study, we can now we have a very less time. Still, we will try to discuss another 5 to 10 minutes on the decolonization process is apt and visible in post-colonial period. On this basis, we can see like Ranjit Guha and Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak and Dipesh Chakravarti. Dipesh Chakravarti. Three scholars I have taken because I know that there is not so much time. So the publication of subaltern studies reader. If you are a student of social sciences, humanities, so you must have knowing about this subaltern studies reader published by Oxford University Press in 10 volumes. Please buy this if you want to study about India. It's one of the like Bibles for India studies. And it came in edited by Ranjit Guha, who first wrote one essay on some aspects of the historiography of the colonial India. Ranjit Guha published it in 1982. And also he edited the first volume of Subaltern Studies Reader, which was contributed by many Indian and foreign scholars on the Indian subject. On the Indian subject. And the first volume came into existence in 1956. And one of the important essays like Can the Subaltern Speak by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak in 1993 also addresses about the Indian subjects, the voice, like if the Indian subject or the subject can speak. So that is, and the idea of provincialization means how the Africans, the Asians, they try to provincialize Europe. Means once upon a time, the Europe came to all these places, like the Asia and the Africa, specifically to India, which changed the nation state. Like we had some feudal states before the British came for 250 years. They ruled us, and we had our own feudal state, nation state, but they provincialize our space, geographical and political space, and which is now opposite, now happening opposite. Like now the elites, like the elites from Asia and Africa, specifically from India, they are trying to provincialize Europe. So that is the approach they have in the study. Please go to the next slide. I will explain it more exactly. I have some studies. I will explain it. We have another 1 or 2 slides. Then we will stop our presentation. Please go to the next slide. Okay. So this is one of the very important slides. I'm just these are from my PhD thesis. Okay. So colonial, subaltern, and post-colonial studies of modern India, Indian nationalism as a response to European modernity. So I told you that the political nationalism, which we, which the British came brought with them to India, and it was, it was the mother of Indian nationalism. There was no Indian nationalism before British came here. There was communal, regional nationalism, linguistic nationalism, cultural nationalism, religious nationalism, but there was no political, geographical nationalism in India before the British came here. That is, there was no united India before the British occupied the Indian state, nation state. We don't know if British would not have been here, but in which state of which in which state we would have been in India. So we don't know. We had been so many states, so many nations. We had been so many nations because British came in thousands or maybe in 10,000s. There are very small small feudal states around in every part of this country. So Ranjit Kumar in his essay on some aspects of the historiography of the colonial India emphasizes on the motive of the native elites' contribution towards the formation of nationalism as a formal response to the colonialism. Means the Indian political nationalism, which born out of the 250 years of engagement of the Indian traditions and Indian institutions, along with the European traditions, values, and institutions. And the outcome is what? It is the Indian nationalism. It is as per Guha, it is a formal response to the colonialism. Means you can say that it is decolonization process. It's a defending of the colonialism. It's the process of beginning of defending the colonialism. At the same time, if you take G.P.S. Chakrabarty in his essay, The Idea of Provincializing Europe, defines the nationalism in the as-well colonies in the Asia, Africa, and Latin America as the outcome of the othering caused by the political modernity of the Europe. He finds the internalization of the nationalism in the colonies as the elite formation vis-a-vis reproduction of the subaltern subjects and vice versa within the limited scope and opportunity of nationalism. So, what, as I told you earlier, Dipesh Chakrabarty is saying that in Latin America or Africa or Asia, or specifically if we take the case of India in Asia, so what is happening? Like, the nationalism is, born out of othering. Othering means, colonizers colonized. Means the colonized were othered by the colonizers. Even the colonized among themselves, they also started othering to others. I mean, that's how the subaltern categories born out of that othering. And this othering is caused by the political modernity. This word is used by political modernity. Dipesh Chakrabarty says that it is the political modernity which appeared in these parts of the world which were once imperialized or colonialized. So this is the mother of nationalism in these parts, and that's how he says that it is a cause of internalization. The nationalism is internalized. The nationalism is internalized and then used against the colonialism or the imperialism. Like they provincialized us, and we are now trying to mimic, trying to follow them on their own footsteps, and we are trying to reproduce something which is very much similar to them. similar to their agenda of nation state or nationalism. So that's how we can say that the nationalism is internalized. It is done by the elites. Again, I'm telling repeatedly these words. These are the very key words you can note down. You can later talk to your professor. So what is the meaning of elite? What is caste? What is class system? And how the nationalism is there? Like you can find out your own nationalism, the Russian nationalism. I was just discussing with Dr. Irina Isakova before the program that can we do one workshop like Indian nationalism and Russian nationalism together, like we can compare, we can go very deeply, and we ask the participants to do some work during the workshop and produce something, like some papers or some project works or some presentations. So that would be the best idea, like how we have to map historically the progress of nationalism, like changing nationalism, like nationalism is being changed. It also happened in Russia. I have some small studies on that also. It also happened in Russia. Everywhere it happened like that. Like once the monarch, then religious nationalism. A lot of things are there. You have to explore it. Finally, I am coming to Gayatri Chaturvedi in her essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? In 1993. She has examined the critical position of the subject. And who is the subject? The subject is always powerless. Who is the subject? Who is powerless? That becomes the subject. The women, the communities who are under the lower strata of class and caste, the children, the poor, and the caste and class, lower strata people in the class and caste lower status. So they are the subalterns, subjects. A discourse of redefining the position of Indian subject in Can the Subaltern Speak is based on the political economy of the nation state, by and large under the process of cultural literary representation and consumption. She is trying to, talk about the gesture of the subjects. Like, can the subaltern speak? Like the subjects, do they have voice or they are voiceless? Do they carry voice or they are voiceless? Who is speaking for whom? Who is speaking for whom? Like, is the subject speaking or someone trying to give a voice to the subject? Voiced and or voiceless. So she does it very nicely. You must read all the cases. Like she's again highlighting power and desire of production of the subject. Her main other but where she is following Michael Foucault. She's following Michael Foucault's principle. On Michael Foucault's principle, she is she's trying to prove that the subject is produced by the power and desire of the author or the powerful regimes or the powerful traditions or institutions. So it is the mother of the subject, and which happened during colonialism and which also continued in the post-colonial period. Next slide, please. Here I am concluding. I mean, henceforth, examination of the nation formation in colonial India may be understood as a consequence of the emancipation of the colonial community and its response by manifold of the native Indian institutions and traditions and native elites engaged in the long-vested British colonialism historically and further its continuity in freed India. This is from my thesis, and this is my conclusion. And I'm, my sincere thanks and gratitude to Professor S.M. Bolkunova, Executive Director, Institute of Social Sciences, RANEPA, for inviting to deliver the open online lecture under Open Methodological Seminar. I'm very much glad that what we discussed during the visit of Dr. Irina Dusakova, it is today materialized, maybe a very small seminar, but I am able to address the students and faculties of this great institution online. My sincere thanks and gratitude to Dr. Irina Dusakova, faculty members, Institute of Social Science, RANEPA, coordinating, planning, and mentoring the open seminar and inspiring my research. I am thankful to all participant professors, researchers, students of ISS RANEPA, Moscow, and invited delegates from Russia and India for cooperation and support during the open seminar. And I'm very much thankful to the to Marina, some I don't know her name, who conducted this technical support. And now the session is open for question answer. So if you have something, you can ask me, and I will try my best to explain it to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor. Just give me a second. Yeah, okay, I'm back here. Thank you very much for this wonderful lecture. We already have several questions in the chat. So let me just read them for everybody who is here. So Igor was asking, so I'll just read the question if I may. I'm interested, is the religious media content somehow controlled in India? For example, in Great Britain, it seems that religious content is not okay when there is recruitment through it. Do you have any laws on that? And I think it is connected to the context that you were saying, that British colonialism really affected.
Okay, can the person who asked the question will just interact? I mean, explain the question, like, because it is coming. I could not find the whole question today. Can you put up the whole question today?
Yeah, I think this is about regulation, whether some content on religion should appear in the media, and whether you have any restrictions on that.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah, this is India is a religious tolerant state. We have so many religions, but the mainstream religion is the Hindu religion, or there are so many minority religions in India. But there are many restrictions in putting them the religious contents in media, because our government or our democracy does not allow to harm these sentiments of that belief or followers of the religion. If something religious contents are not in general available in Indian media. So, but sometime some political parties which are though everyone is claiming that they are not religious, nationalism is absent. I told you that earlier it was religious nationalism before the British came here. But still some impact will be there, definitely, because British left only, this is 70-80 years back they left, so that impact will be there, because the Hinduism is the major religion, and it is more than 10,000 years old religion in India, and it is followed by about 80% population of this 75-80% population of this country. But in general, people are tolerant of each religion. In general, people allow each other to practice their beliefs and their festivals, rituals, and rites. But the religious contents cannot be brought to media unless until there is proper permission, or that should be judged. Even in cinema also, this is censored. Our media, our contents are censored. So also there are columns where that religious sentiments should not be hot of that particular community or the religious followers. So it is not allowed in general in India, and as per the rule or the constitution of India, it is not allowed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you have Igor, if you have any further questions, please either turn on your voice or type the question if it was not addressed fully as you wanted. And the other question we have is, who of the researchers in political economy from India would you recommend? I think this is like maybe the most important or the most basic authors that you'd recommend us to start with.
Yeah, important of the most
Important, most basic.
map. Okay, okay. It is a map. When the British came here, when the British came here, when they took over the Indian subcontinent, but now the map is totally changed. So if you are studying historically, then this map is okay. Otherwise, you have my email ID. You can write me one email. I can send you a present political map, which is authenticated map. But this is not the authenticated map of India as on date. It is very old. It is very old. I mean, map of India, and this is a modern map of India when the British took over. I choose it because I want to show that how near the India and Russia are. You might have seen that in the map, but it cannot be used as an authentic political map of present day India. It is the old one. It is, maybe it is more than 300 years, about 400 years old map.
Okay, thank you very much. And my own question that I had. So in your last slides, you addressed Foucault and Deleuze as methodological framework for such studies. So what methods do you believe
Okay. Yeah.
most suitable? Mm-hmm.
Actually, what happens like most of, if you do you know Gayatri Chakrabarti Spivak? So she knows French. Okay, she has translated many things from French. Like in her Can the Subaltern Speak and other essays, mostly she has tried to review Michael Foucault. But it is, on my viewpoint, for India study, Michael Foucault's theories are not important. Michael Foucault's theories are not important. For studying Russia or for studying Europe, for studying USA, so they are local. Likewise, for studying India, our local critics direct theory. Like you can always, I told you, you read the subaltern theory. The subaltern theory, like there is 10 volumes of subaltern studies. So if you are really interested on theories, you just buy the volume 1, Subaltern Theory, volume 1, Oxford University Press. It is very cheaper. You can find in Amazon. You can order this today or tomorrow. So you start reading this. You have my email ID, or Dr. Irina will give you my email ID. You can write me one email. I will send you a number of critics and scholars, books and essays. Also, there are so many essays available online. I can download them and I can send the PDFs so you can read it. But I suggest to study the theorists who are directly saying something, not from the Europe's point of view. Because post-colonial study means you deny the Europe, you deny the West. You understand? You deny the Europe, you deny the West. You build up your own. You build up your own. But I'm telling you, this building of your own also is a process of recolonization. Means our mind, our mind is so much trained in colonial or in Europe's knowledge. Everything. See, I am using this. This is not my language. I'm using English. You are not speaking with me in Russian. You are speaking English. You understand? We are using some technologies which are invented by the Europeans. So the Europe is so much in us that we have to debar it. We have to remove it and then examine. the knowledge. So, but which is also a very difficult task. We are saying by our, our writing against it, but we are following it. So, this is the difficulty of post-colonial studies. This is the difficulty of post-colonial studies. Every scholar of post-colonial studies, like Dr. Irina, also like myself, also we are engaged in post-colonial studies. But I am telling you, we are practicing so much of the Europe when we do our post-colonial studies. But it is also important, unless until you do post-colonial studies, means what you just cut yourself from Europe. You be yourself, like you be a Russian, I be an Indian. So we have to study our things from our own perspectives, from our own challenges and our own problems. Then that is successful. So I did. I'm telling you, I'm basically a researcher of tribes. Do you know tribes? Tribals. So I spent more than 12 or 13 years in tribal studies. I have one dissertation and one PhD thesis on that, and many publications. But what happened? I never taken the theories so much into deep. I have a small chapter of theories, but most of my first dissertation is without a theory. It is 127 pages without theory. So where I have some beautiful findings. You just don't use the theories. Leave the theories. You first go with your own text or context or field work or whatever you are studying. You do your documentation properly. You arrange them very nicely. Then you can introduce some of the theories, very few. So that is a brilliant thing when you remove basically that is called post-colonial. That is decolonization process. If you are putting so many theorists from the whole of the world, from the America, from the Europe, from the German, from the French, then the originality of your study is lost. You are again colonizing your mind. You are again colonizing your thought. So that is the requirement. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think we have time for one more question, not to get too late. So if anybody else has any questions, please type or raise your hand. If no, then I will have one more question, if I may.
Please.
My question is, you mentioned that these post-colonial studies were implemented by researchers from different disciplines, like sociology, anthropology, and others. And my question is, who succeeded, like what discipline was the most successful in that, in your opinion, if I may ask that?
Okay. I am telling you, this post-colonial studies are totally based on what? Based on the historiography of imperialism and colonialism. Like historical methods remain a bridge to post-colonial studies. If, have you seen my presentation? I have used so many years, dates, and all. That is historical methods. So everyone does a post-colonial studies is mapping the history of colonialism and further its continuity. So most are this post-colonialism came from the cultural studies, from the literary studies, okay, from the study of the gender, race, ethnicity, sexuality, from the study of subaltern, study of women, and also popular culture like cinema, theater, and the folk, the oral traditions. Everything we put into this platform of post-colonial studies. The most successful is not the study of sociology or anthropology, but the study of cultural and literary texts. You will find all over the world. Why I am so much interested in Russian studies or Slavic studies? Because I am interested in your great novels, short stories, your oral tradition. I am also collaborating with during the COVID period. I collaborated with the 3-4 folklorists, and we developed a project So thing is that the most is the textual analysis, and then also semiotic studies, like cultural semiotic studies, and textual analysis. You will find all the literary persons, they are using this, researchers, these post-colonial methods. But one has to be very, very careful using this. If you are studying Indian literature, you take some critics from the Indian context. If you are studying Russian, so you have to take, because the context is more important than the text. You cannot just apply Foucault everywhere. No, I mean, I don't suggest it to any young researchers. That's why I'm telling people to study the text, to do the field work. Even if you don't use any theory, you will find finally you have if you follow some historical methods or comparative methods, like you can compare the genres, you can compare two genres, you can compare so many texts of one author, you can compare one Indian author with one Russian author. Likewise, the most I'm basically from the comparative literature. So I suggest everyone to, even if you don't use comparative methods, you don't say that I am using comparative methods. Can you leave comparative method and do a research? Research means mostly comparing. Research means mostly documenting through history. So the best methods are always the historical methods. The best methods are always the comparative literary methods, literature reviews and all. And one has to be very careful. And mostly we are doing, I think you are from which background, please? Sociology or media or?
I'm basically anthropologist and some in media studies and in folklore studies.
Okay, media studies. Okay. So this I studied for 12 or 13 years ethnographic narratives like cultural anthropology or social anthropology. My most of the publications are based on that. My seminars are based on that. And by using this nation and nationalism and subaltern studies, I did all my work where I have studied the tribes, social and cultural anthropologist views. So post-colonial studies are more used in media studies, are more used in the literary text studies, more used in semiotic studies. But I think the anthropology, I mean the physical anthropology, or they are using some traditional methods. They have their own methods. Anthropology has its own methods, and that is the beginning of all research. Like everything was theory of race, theory of enlightenment. So all these, that is not been changed, because that is the motto of anthropology. Anthropology wants to study the race as an individual. I mean, how it different from other races. Likewise, so I think in the anthropology, I'm not sure. I think you are more trained in that. I'm basically a literary and semiotic person. So um, um, I don't believe that anthropology is used so much post-colonial. But post-colonial studies is used more for the literary studies and cultural studies.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. It was a great pleasure and honor to have you here. Thank you for your lecture and for the answers. And let's hope we keep in touch and have some more initiatives together. And
Thank
many
you.
thanks. Thank you. And many thanks to all those who attended and who asked questions. Yeah, I will keep you informed about our next activities when we have them. So thanks again, everybody. Yeah, so I will just close the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wish you a happy and great new year to all of you.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
See you.